Hi everyone, bonjour à tous et à toutes. Thank you for being here. The event will be in, the event will be in English because we're, we want to be as inclusive as possible. So hopefully everybody master the language of English. Our 5 speakers, including myself, as you can hear, we're French speaking. So if someone really wants to ask questions in French later on, we will just translate for people that are English only speakers or the people online. So the event is in hybrid form. There's about, I think, 75 people either online or here participating. So thank you for being here. Today's event will be very laid back. The idea is to have as little distance between you and the speakers, with the idea of you to be able to ask questions and either feel inspired by the remarkable people that we're going to have online here in front of you, that accepted to come and present their career path from academia to the real world, trying to have as much of a positive impact as possible on climate and a sustainable and inclusive society. Just a few words on CLIMACT. Maybe I can skip to the next. So CLIMACT is an interdisciplinary and interinstitutional center between UNIL and EPFL. We started in 2021 with both institutions coming together with the beliefs that to address climate change, mitigation, and adaptation, we needed both sides of the brain, UNIL and EPFL, working together with the idea to be as systematic as possible with the problem and solutions to climate change, taking into account the social, the economic, the technical, the scientific aspects of the problems and the solutions. We have 4 main objectives: to reinforce the interdisciplinary and interinstitutional climate and sustainability research between both institutions, work on implementation projects, research action projects at the national level and at the local level, increase the visibility of what is being done at UNIL and EPFL today on climate and sustainability, and really create bonds between academia and civil society to facilitate the ecological transition. On that topic in particular, CLIMACT is very active with the media, with politicians, with public administration, acting hopefully as a lobby for knowledge to be able to share what the state of science tells us about the problem of climate change, but also the solutions and actions that can have a positive impact. I think that's enough for the center. I'd like to thank the 5 experts that have accepted to join us today to tell us more about their career path and how they were able to find this transition and keep having a positive impact on climate change and sustainability. The idea for this event came from the CLIMACT scholars, and I will let Erika tell you all about it.
Hi everyone, my name is Erika McGale. I'm a postdoc at UNIL, and I'm one of the co-coordinators for the Young Climate Scholars. This is a kind of subgroup of CLIMACT. It's early career researchers, so within 3 years of finishing a PhD or a postdoc. And we're about 100 members, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what it is. You might have seen in your registration that you could sign up to be one of these young CLIMACT scholars, and there's lots of opportunities that you can gain from being part of this group. So we are mainly given more opportunities to network with each other on sustainability and climate issues. And if you don't think that your topic in research or in what you're working in falls under these large topics, well, I would encourage you to reconsider, just because even I work on plant communication in something that's super, super fundamental science. And I still want to have discussions with people from all sorts of faculties across UNIL and across EPFL to see what can I do. Is there something that I can extend my research to, even if I measure one plant, one species, one fungus in one environment? This has led to really important and career-changing conversations for me, and I know that it can do the same for you. Apart from networking opportunities that we get throughout the semesters, we also have the opportunities to propose ideas of things we want to see that we think could also help our careers. Like this workshop today, as mentioned by Nicolas, it came from an idea that was from kind of the community. It was pushed by me and my co-coordinator, Elisaveta, and we were able to see it realized and then extend it to other CLIMACT members and young scholars as well. And from that point, I just want to emphasize that if you are already part of CLIMACT scholars and young scholars and you're not sure how you can see and realize an event like this or meet people that you really think would push your career forward or learn more about what we can do with our research or with our work, then just come talk to us, because it's really not a top-down organization. Anybody can suggest something, and our roles as co-coordinators are really just to help you get that idea into motion, no matter what it is. So I really encourage that. And one last thing I want to say about a cool opportunity that I actually haven't had the opportunity to be part of yet, but I'm looking forward to in the future, is participation in visits to local schools in collaboration with l'Éprouvette at UNIL. And this is to explain climate topics from a scientific viewpoint, or maybe decisions and the roles of the IPCC. And that's an opportunity to really get involved with the local community as well, extend outside of the universities that we work at, and see what the thoughts of the public are. So if you're interested, you had the opportunity during registration, but also check out the CLIMACT website. There's a contact form. If you didn't have the opportunity to sign up for the newsletter already, that's kind of the way in. And always, I'm available to be contacted as well. I would love to talk with all of you so that we can see what kind of connections that we can make. And now back to Nicolas.
Thank you, Erika. We weren't alone in organizing this event. We had the help of the alumni services of UNIL and EPFL, and as such, I would like to welcome to the stand and the microphone Joël Rubli and Leila Auger that will briefly talk to us about these services.
Hello, everybody. I'm very glad to be here today to present the Alumni UNIL network. Sorry. Just a few words about our network. Our office was created 13 years ago. It's a service of the UNIL direction, and it's all free of charge. I arrived myself 2 years ago as head of the office. So who we are? So our community brings together graduates of the 7 faculties of UNIL, bachelor, master, PhD, and long life learning. That means a lot of members, including 3,000 PhD. Nearly 10% of our members are abroad, living all around the world. As you see, it's a very large network. We have a private platform only for members, a directory with a research option, so you can contact everybody in our network. You can also research with a discipline, also the diploma. You can search people who has graduated in a year you want to precise and everything. So we offer a large range of services. To be brief, I will just present 2 offers, the one Tandem Pro and also Welcome Abroad. The principle is to be put in contact one by one with pairs involved in professional world. So it means you can be in contact with somebody for practical advice if you're going abroad. You can also have a coaching for your career and also an action of experience, as we are going to have today with alumni UNIL and EPFL to share with you the best practice to have the job of your dream. One of our missions is to present research of UNIL. We select events and projects, and we share the ones who are the most interesting for our alumni. Today we share this event with all our PhD community if they want to take part of this event, for example. So it's research conferences, also programs for entrepreneurship. We have the Hub Entrepreneuriat Innovation, who is open for our alumni. We also present support funds or also webinars with some of our partners, like the Graduate Campus of UNIL, who is in charge of a doctorate, PhD, and postdoc. And we have also partners abroad, like the Swiss Next centers, who are organizing webinars or also conferences abroad. Lots of our events are open to the UNIL community, but some of them, the one who we organize ourselves, are open only for the alumni community, and this means you will share tips, experience. You will talk with only alumni, who is also very interesting for you. So Climate team proposed me to give you advice how to help you find a job if you want to go outside the academic world. So I will share now with you before the presentations. First of one, rethinking your CV to be a non-academic. So the Graduate Campus of UNIL has a team who organize Café Career, and they can help you thinking how you can modelize your CV to postulate for a job in the non-academic world. The second tip is to meet specialists of this kind of transition, also the team of Graduate Campus, but also the centre de carrière of the SOC, Service Orientation et Carrière de l'UNIL. They can give you also advice. And the third tip, all the three of them I discussed with my colleague of the Graduate Campus, who knows very well the PhD and the postdoc. So the third tip is create and maintain your network during your studies and after. Also, maybe if you are a postdoc or also a PhD, it's very important to create, to maintain, to do contact when you want to go further with your career academic, or if you want to leave your academic world. So I think I've finished. Thank you for your attention. Of course, we'll be here all the workshop at the end too. If you want to, if you have questions, I will answer with pleasure, and you also can be in contact with me with my email or contact me after this workshop. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't know if I still look like her, but anyway. So I'm Leila Oje. I'm the director of EPFL Alumni, and very happy to be here today for to introduce this conference. So I think overall it's great to see such initiative between UNIL and EPFL, brought together by CLIMACT. That's number one. Number two, it's also an important subject about climate change, and so it's important to, a strong interest and topic. And I hope I can, I would just share with you a few information about the EPFL Alumni Network, so that you can see also how interesting that this can be for those who can use it. So we have today 44,000 alumni around the world. So each person who graduates with a bachelor, master, PhD, or some postgrads from EPFL can be part of that network. We are working on including also postdocs. So this is work in progress, but be patient. It takes time, unfortunately, but it's coming. And so this network is mainly, so we have 72% who work in Switzerland. The rest is abroad, and you can see a little bit the report, how it's spread out around the world, but a lot in Europe and North America as well. And we have about 23% of people who graduated with a PhD from EPFL, but probably many of them also graduated with a PhD from other universities after leaving EPFL. So this is how it looks like. So we did do a career survey that you can find actually on our website on where our alumni work. So as you can see, it's very small, but we have renewables environment, which represent 2.3%. But this doesn't mean actually that it's only 2.3% that work in, on the climate subject. Many actually alumni work in sustainability as part of their other industries, and they have roles in there. Some others are involved in politics, as you can see with alumni coming here, others involved in NGOs or associations. And so this is really much broader. And I think in the next career survey we'll try to make sure to capture that so that it's available. So it's interesting of course, for you to reach out actually to all the people that work in this field. LinkedIn, for me, I found it as a great source actually to identify talent. So I would really recommend that you go and identify actually people, by doing some keyword search. You can really find very, very interesting profiles that can inspire you. And I didn't prepare advice for you, but this is typically one of them is actually to reach out to these people and ask for informational interviews to understand how they got into this position, how is the environment. People are very open in general to answering to these questions. So when we talk about alumni, it's really people who have spent actually time together on campus, decided to study at one point in one place. It becomes really important over time. And but there's this time actually of graduation when you leave, and it's really where the alumni network is the most interesting and important to support you in doing this transition. And it shouldn't be, you should look at this transition as something very difficult, because actually there's so much to learn every time, but it's something that you need to prepare indeed, and and go out and reach out to these people who have gone through this transition. And and our goal as EPFL alumni, together with many, many volunteers that help us actually manage this network, the goal is actually to make this, to really support actually the young graduates. I mean, the people who are, transitioning to industry or other, to help them actually in this transition, so that after they can help the next generation. And it's a lot about this circle, this karma, basically, after they want to help. So that's a little bit our mission. We're a team of 7. We're part of EPFL, so we're a service of the school. We're not an association. We manage the database, of course, which is really the directory, which is very, very important. This is the core of what an alumni network is about. The core value is there, is actually the people that make this this network. We organize a lot of events. You can see on our website, epflalumni.ch, and it's an opportunity to meet and to network in Switzerland, but also abroad, everywhere in the world. We have actually chapters and clubs. Not yet the sustainability club, but that's something we're working on. But we do have, geographical chapters around the world, as well as a women club for the moment, and more to come. There's also, we do a lot on communication, of course, so it's also a way to look and to see, follow us on the social networks to see there's some interesting alumni, that do incredible careers as well. We do have career and recruitment services, as well as mentoring. So this is a whole program that we organize, and we're going to have more to come. where we support actually. So we're supporting alumni. So if you are still studying or still in the university environment, there's the Centre Carrière at EPFL, at least for those who are in EPFL, who support actually PhDs. And we also do have support for innovation and startup programs. Basically, everything is happening there. It's our new platform. It's our base camp. This is really where, you know, all our alumni have to, you know, come together. And we launched a job board recently, so this is also a place to look at opportunities. And we will be launching a mentoring platform next month, I hope. So where there will be actually people who can, you know, suggest themselves as mentor. And you know, if you are an alum, you can then ask also for to be, you know, to be a mentee. And this is really great. We do have actually other programs for mentorship, and this is actually a really great way to transition because you have a professional. We can match you with a professional that is, that has gone through this transition, that knows about the world on the other side, and that can just share his point of view. Of course, it's not a general point of view. So yeah, I would recommend to go and check that. So thank you and enjoy and thanks to all the alumni that came.
Thank you, Joël. Thank you, Leila. Let's jump right in the meat of why we're here. I'd like to ask Rémi to join me up here. Thank you. So how do I? Oh. Bon, je ne sais pas le fermer.
So hello everybody, it's a pleasure to be here. I would like to thank CLIMACT for the invitation and all the organizers that have made these events possible. I have prepared some slides. I will be rather academic. I tried to follow the instructions that were given to me, so I will present first my career in a few words, then some thought about transferring academic skills to other kind of areas. And finally, a small reflection on how we can impact climate change when working in a public administration. So my job today is to be climate delegate of the Canton de Vaud here. What am I doing now is to coordinate the climate and sustainable policies of the canton. So that's a policy that is directly piloted by the Conseil d'État here. It's something transversal, and it requires a lot of interpersonal relation inside and outside the public administration. I'm working at the office, Cantonal Office for Sustainability and Climate at Canton de Vaud. So regarding my career path, like most of you, I think I went to high school, not really knowing what I wanted to do after that, knowing what I didn't want to do. And when I finished high school, I had to choose something to study afterwards, and I went to the law faculty at University of Geneva and did a bachelor there. But that wasn't really what I wanted to do afterwards. So when I finished my bachelor, I looked at some kind of master that was open to law students, and I arrived here at the Institut de Hautes Études en Administration Publique, Swiss. I don't remember the name in English, but that's in this very building that I did my master and then a PhD. And after doing my master here at the Institute of Public Administration, I decided to start a PhD and to work for 8 years as a PhD and then a postdoc in different faculties and universities in Switzerland, as you can see here. So my main field of expertise was and is public policy analysis, so that's a sub-discipline of political science. I worked first here at IDEAP in the sustainable public policy chair with Professor Peter Knopfel, and my activities were divided, that's somehow classical, between research teaching, and mandates. So I first worked during 3 years on a national research program on sustainable water management. That's in this framework that I did my PhD. My PhD was focusing on low activation strategies. So how do public and private actors respond to laws that are adopted by Parliament? And I developed a framework operationalizing these strategies. So strategy of passivity, strategies of diversion, strategies of circumvention, and not only strategy of implementation of this law, even by public actors. Then I worked on another research project, part of another national research program, also at the University of Lausanne, which was focusing on sustainable food system, and there I worked on political processes regarding this food system. And finally, I went for 1 year at ETH Zurich in the Natural Resource Policy Group. So during this career, I focused on many different subjects. Climate change was one of the many subjects that I worked on. That was not the main subject, but that was already at that time an important topic for me. I also had some teaching course and mandates for different public administration in Switzerland. At one time in my career, in this career, this first part of my career, I accumulated, I think, four or five different contracts, all limited in time, of course. You know that, I think. And I really started to think, what do I want to do after that? And when I just began another postdoc, so I had a contract of 2 years that I had just started. I decided to reconsider my career and to leave the academia. So that was a radical change of path for me. There was many reasons to that. One of the first reason was personal. I didn't want to go abroad at that time in my life. That was not possible for me, and it's very difficult to pursue a career in the academics if you don't do that, as you know. And the other one was that I wanted to be, I think, nearer the decision center, where the decisions are taken. I was an observer, and I wanted to be more than that, to be part of this decision. So for me, after having studied public administration for a while, it was rather evident that I wanted to go and work in public administration. So when I took this decision, I didn't have anything concrete to do. And for 1 year, I think, that was a period of transition and work on some mandates. I still had some teaching, and I had a part-time job at the Ville de Lausanne at that time in the social service. So nothing to do with what I had did before, nothing to do with climate change, but this was an opportunity to make a step towards this public administration. And then I worked for 1 year at État de Fribourg, and for 4 years now I am working at the Canton de Vaud. This transition was not simple. I must say I wasn't really prepared to that. I don't think that at that time there had support for people who wanted to leave the academia. We were really formatted to work in academics. We didn't really had discussion on how to translate our skills that we learn here to another world, the public administration world. And I had to I have this reflection rather on my own, and I am really happy to hear that today there are more prestation for academics that want to also follow that career path. One of the first things that I reflected on at that time was how to translate these academic skills, so that you know that kind of skills. Contribution to scientific theory, research method. For me, it was qualitative research method, managing research projects, making interdisciplinary work, teaching and evaluating students. But if you say that when you postulate in public administration, that doesn't have any value for itself. So I tried to adapt my CV, I tried to adapt my motivation letters, etc. So for the CV, it was rather simple. You have to delete all the publication, all the teaching that doesn't interest the people that want to hear you. And then try to translate your skills in something that makes sense for your future employers. So here it's a kind of example or ways to translate these skills and to say the same thing but using different words that may resonate with what the people you will have to deal with want to hear. So rather than saying that I contributed to political theory, I said that I had a political sense, that I was able to navigate with politicians, to influence policies, so to be that I was able to move in a public administration, rather than saying that I'm working with qualitative research method. I said that I was able to reduce complexity, propose solution-oriented options. That's what they want to hear also. Managing research project became managing complex multi-actor and transversal projects. Interdisciplinary work became intercultural communication skills, and so on and so on. So that's really a translating exercise that I did at that time, and that was quite useful. And finally, a few words about how and why I think the public administration is an interesting place to impact climate change. It's an interesting place to impact climate change because it's at the interface between two spheres, the scientific spheres and the political spheres. The scientific sphere, you can think to IPCC report, for example, will tell you what is necessary, but that's not sufficient. One of our jobs in the public administration is to also produce scientific truth, also produce scientific knowledge that is more near the territory in question. So that's what we do in our office. We produce scientific knowledge about the Canton de Vaud. We did a bilan carbone of our emissions. We did an audit of our plan climat. We did a prospective studies of the transition energetic, and all that knowledge is supporting or taking into account into political and public policies, but it's not sufficient. And on the other side, you have this other sphere, the political sphere, with political administrative processes, political games, political majority. So I know that there are some deputy in the room, so they know that pretty well. And this political sphere defines what is acceptable. And we can't, in the public administration, go further than what is acceptable. So what we produce here are some policies that are in this sphere or in the area that is acceptable. And finally, to conclude, so my work today is to work here, in this circle, at the interface between the two circles, and also trying not to move the political spheres in the bad direction, rather than to move it in the what I think to be the right direction. That is nothing. Nothing is. Everything can move in one direction and another. Everything is really malleable, and I think that we have a capacity in public administration to act on that and to bring better public policies for impacting climate change. Thank you, and sorry for my English. I haven't had the opportunity to speak in English for a long time.
Thank you very much, Rémi. I'd like to welcome Elli now, please, and I'll try to get rid of this. There we go.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Yes, so this is the title. My name is Elli Varkaraki. So I did my studies at the EPFL, both chemical engineering studies and the PhD. So my journey started, I was born in Greece, and now I come to you with 30 years of working experience related to the renewable and environmental friendly technologies, and among which 25 years are related to hydrogen technologies. If people are interested, we can discuss a little bit more in detail about it. It covers a very large number of technologies and fields of application. But of course, work is not everything. I'm also passionate about different things, and you'll see a lot of them have something to do with the environment. So in particular, whatever is in relation with the sea. So diving, sailing, swimming, everything that is related to water. I have the opportunity to clean up when you are diving, to take out some of the plastics. Yeah, we see that there is a lot to do to mitigate our impact on the environment. So for my journey, I said it's quite long. So after my studies at the EPFL, I worked a little bit on the waste gas treatment, then in a startup of the EPFL on making what we called at that time photovoltaic cells of the Grätzel type. They were transparent, and I was hired to industrialize them. It was soon visible that it was very difficult to industrialize them. I switched then to Casale Group. It was a very interesting application. That's where I learned what is chemical engineering. I was working a lot on for large-scale industries, for energy efficiency, wastewater treatment, and also they had an activity on making hydrogen for energy storage from renewable energy sources. So I had the opportunity to start a lab there to work on renewable hydrogen. Then I made a change, which was rather a personal choice. I decided to leave Switzerland because Casale was based in Lugano, Ticino. And I moved to Greece for personal reasons. I did not like the situation in Greece. But I stayed 12 years. My job was very interesting. I was working at the Center for Renewable Energy Sources. It was extremely variable. I worked a lot with the European projects in the integration of hydrogen technologies with renewables. But I also was involved in, for example, in setting up energy policy, how to promote the renewable energies. I also represented the Greek state at the International Energy Agency in what is called technology collaborative programs. I was working on TCP hydrogen. It is collaborative research from countries all over the world, where you also have some specific subjects where people exchange ideas from the academia, essentially the academic world, all over the world. So it was a very interesting experience for 5 years. It was in parallel with a lot of EU projects, demonstrators, where we had, for example, a building that was fully sustainable, only supplied by small-scale wind turbines, photovoltaics, and the energy was stored in a hydrogen system, with a water electrolyzer to produce hydrogen, metal hydrides, and storage to store it, and then fuel cells, and even a hydrogen burner to have even the production of hot water. Maybe, yeah, to continue, I came back to Switzerland. Yeah. I came back to Switzerland in 2012. How did that happen? It was thanks to my network. It was during, after a conference, I was speaking with some people, and I had made a presentation. Someone reached out and told me, you know, I've heard that a company in Switzerland is looking for a specialist of water electrolyzers. I was looking for an occasion to come back to Switzerland. It's a little bit complicated, the situation, just for the fun fact. Why did I stay so long? Because when I moved to Greece, I was married with a Swiss guy, a Bernese, also an alumni of the EPFL. And so I brought him to Greece. He loved it, and I hated it. So since my personal reasons were that I wanted to be close to my family, unfortunately my parents passed away quite young, and so they could not help me with the kids. We lived near Athens, and my husband is the first Swiss who was engaged as a professor, who became a permanent employee of the Greek state. So it is the dream of most Greeks to become an employee of the Greek state, but it was not mine. And I found the unique Swiss who wanted it. So he's a professor in the Technical University of Hania, and he stayed there. And that's why I was asking him to go back to Switzerland, because I could not stand it. But apparently he didn't want, and he's still living there. So I came here working at Belenos. I was heading the development of a PEM electrolyzer. Belenos Clean Power Holding, a lot of people don't know the name. It was part of the Swatch Group. So it was founded by the father Hayek so that with money that was being earned on selling watches, I had nothing to do with watches, but in Belenos he was promoting green technologies. So the son decided to close down Belenos 3 years later. So I had to move on. At that moment I already had a lot of work as a consultant, as an independent consultant. So I thought I could, it was interesting. So for a year, I essentially worked as a consultant. My main contracts were a lot with, as an expert for the European Commission. They are looking for experts to evaluate proposals. There were more and more proposals related in the hydrogen and fuel cell field. And I also had some small contracts with, in the private sector. But I realized that my kids were still small, so I had my 2 kids. Working 100% with 2 kids and without family in Switzerland it's even more difficult than mitigating the climate change sometimes. So I decided that it needed a lot of work. It's something that you will probably face in your career. You can, there are a lot of opportunities to work as a consultant. It gives you a lot of liberty, but it's a lot of work because you need to look after the contracts. And so I came back to work in a company called Solid Power. They were making, Solid Power is a startup, initially was a startup from the EPFL called HC Ceramics. They are making high temperature solid oxide fuel cells. And I was brought there to take over the management of the balance of plant, what we say. So we were also working with a lot of European projects trying to develop larger and larger systems. Then I moved to Planair. It's a small engineering company that is situated working on the energy transition, a lot in collaboration, I suppose, with the Canton de Vaud, Planair. So it is based in Yverdon. I was called to head the department on wind and hydrogen. So I had a small team, still trying to develop some projects with hydrogen and also participating on the IEA TCP on wind at that time. I had previous experience with the TCP on hydrogen, and now I was working in the wind development. And well, in 2022, I decided that, I must say, the conditions were quite difficult because in small companies, very often if you want to develop things and you don't have funding, it's very, very complicated. And I was, again, the network, someone found me on LinkedIn, and they proposed me to work for a company based in Norway. It's called Yara International. Most of you may not have heard of it. My contract now is with Yara Geneva, Yara Switzerland. Yara is making fertilizers, and I was engaged as a global expert hydrogen. I'm working towards the decarbonation of the large industry. So Yara is making ammonia, urea, NPK, and different fertilizers. For example, they are also making AdBlue. It is based in urea. It's something that we add in the diesel trucks to reduce the emissions. So it's 20,000 persons. All my life, I wanted something interesting, but I tried to avoid working for large companies. All the companies you've seen initially were all small scale. I didn't want to work for the oil and gas industry because it was not towards good for the environment. But I must admit that the conditions of work in large companies are generally much better, at least from my own experience. So looking at my career path, let's say, it is most of the decisions, I had to take a lot of difficult decisions. I mentioned one between Greece and Switzerland, etc. So finding a work-life balance is not always easy. So often we need to make some decisions. Another decision was mentioned earlier. If you don't want to leave at a certain moment, or if you don't want to leave for another city, you need to, you can take another option. And so, just to finalize a little bit about the skills, I did not prepare something about the transfer of academic skills, but I focused on the non-academic skills that we consider important. We see that they have, and at least they have helped me in finding always interesting jobs. And so, of course, being able to demonstrate that you are at ease with teamwork. Networking is always important because sometimes you learn about opportunities, and nowadays a lot of the positions are only, for example, some companies only publish them on LinkedIn. Then, of course, communication. You said in multicultural environments, particularly in international environment, you work with people from all over the world. It is important to have a growth mindset, so to learn, to continue to learn things, whether with an additional diploma, more structured, let's say, or by reading things and learning things about and following the big picture. So you need to be strategic and understand what is feasible in one work is not applicable in another one. Have also an idea of what was explained earlier about what we want to do for climate change and what is feasible. So whether it is with politicians or with the financing people in a large company, it's not the politicians who will refrain it, but it's the business case. So if the business case is not good, people won't, you can't have advanced in that field. So motivation always, you need to be motivated to have, to enjoy it. Languages have served me a lot. I enjoy languages. I studied Spanish when I was at the EPFL because I wanted to read Latin American writers from the original. And with my Spanish, I went to work to Lugano. So I never had any courses of Italian, but if you work 3 years with Italians, you learn Italian. And I realized that these have helped me throughout my life from time to time. Now I work with a Venezuelan who is, when I go to Norway, in our plant, and also a Mexican woman who is an electrical engineer. So I practice from time to time. So critical thinking, of course, is always important, and you need to try to advance it as... humor can help in several occasions. Things are not always that easy in all environment. And of course, you need to have fun. So Sometimes, if at some moment you see that you don't have fun, I think it's time to go somewhere else, if it's possible, of course. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elli. While we welcome Sebastien, just a reminder to write down the questions that you want to ask. We'll have plenty of time after the coffee break for that. Thank you very much. So I will do short here, and then if you have a question. I will stay on that slide, in fact. No other slide. And I was planning to move, but I will stay next to the micro. As it was demanded to share a little bit from my journey, which you can see if it can help people if they are still in the process of finding the journey. I'm Sebastien Humbert. I did my undergrad in EPFL in, at the time, environmental engineering. And I worked as a researcher. So in terms of experience from academia to reality, for the two, the other side of the world. First, I worked as a researcher, both in laboratoire of ecosystem management at EPFL, doing life cycle assessment. That was actually my focus. So basically calculating carbon footprint. I very quickly went on that. It was still the early time of doing carbon footprint 20 years ago, but we were already talking about it and calculating CO2 emission of things, talking already about climate change. I also did research through my PhD, so whether it's at EPFL or in California where I kept my studies, that was a research world. And in the research world, the reason I went to environmental engineering is because from being a kid, I was already sensitive to the environment and wanted to contribute to helping save the world, focusing on things related to climate and biodiversity. And as a researcher, so I felt I have to generate knowledge so that we know what's the best option if we want to take the option that has the lowest climate impact or the lowest pressure on biodiversity, water pollution, etc. So doing life cycle assessment, I started to do research and publish papers. And after a while, going to conferences, publishing papers, I had some frustration growing in me because I felt that we were only talking among ourselves. So basically in the room, there were only people who were convinced that we have to fight climate change. And there were only people, well, the only people who read my papers, I felt were only my advisors and sometimes my peers. So you need a lot of resilience and courage to keep in research because it's a lot of hours you invest, and sometimes you feel that people are not listening to you, especially not people who actually make decisions. So being at the good moment, the good place, I had the opportunities with a few colleagues who were in the same state of mind as me, where we felt that after a few years of doing research, we wanted to bring that research to the companies. We quickly realized that the CEO of Nestle is not looking for a paper to know what he or she, but he has to decide. So we said, okay, let's do consulting services. So with some people, I co-founded a company called Quantis, which is a carbon footprint life cycle assessment-based consulting company, where the idea was to bring the knowledge we had, literally that we developed at the EPFL, to the company. So instead of hoping the company would come to EPFL, which didn't really happen, we went to the head office of the company saying, hey, this is what you should do to reduce your climate impact, reduce your pressure on biodiversity. And the interest was there, grew. If I can give one or two examples, I think the movie of Al Gore, was it 2007, 2008, Inconvenient Truth, was a big driver in raising awareness. And the other one, clearly, at least from environmental consulting services, was the Paris Agreement in 2015. I remember that were like the two big going up. And after 15 years of experience, as most of you, I guess, know, we are still not reaching, the world is not on track to reach its climate target. If you didn't know that, I'm sorry to tell you, but for the moment, we're going more into the whole than going into the success in terms of climate goal as well, and biodiversity. The goal is to stop the decrease of biodiversity. It doesn't work. And one of the frustrations that grew up in consulting for me, I'm talking just about myself, is the fact that, in fact, it's a bit what Rémi showed. You know what you should do, and then you have the other constraint, political constraint, financial constraint, stakeholders, public perception. Sometimes plastic is actually the most environmentally friendly packaging option, but you're simply gonna go to glass because your consumer think glass is better. So you simply double your energy consumption to package your drink because of public perception, even if you know that in theory, plastic or Tetra Pak is better. So I had the opportunity then to move to the side, or I wanted to be on the side of people who make decisions, because I was a bit tired of being like, thank you for your advice, now you may leave the room, we're gonna make our own decision based on other factors. So I decided, basically I had two choices, going to companies, and I don't think I'm the best guy to work for a company for different reasons. So I decided to go into politics, both from an executive and legislative level. So I ran for the executive level of my village. There's a little red flag. It's a small village called Le Vaud. It's beautiful. The reason I felt that I could be useful for the environment at the executive level is because, especially in a small village, basically you don't really have a lot of political pressure and lobbyists to deal with. It's the opposite. In fact, you're by yourself. So you have a good opportunity to influence decision of the village. Typical example, I'm responsible now for the la voirie, the road management, the people who clean the road. And we had to renew the vehicles. You can decide to go for the cheap diesel option or the more expensive electric option run with renewable energy, which we can debate, but from a LCA perspective, it's more environmentally friendly. And in a very small village, basically, as long as the budget is here, do what you want, fine, move forward. So here's an example where we could really manage to convince my colleague who were like, okay, fine, if you think it's a better idea, go for it. So you can really take a decision. You can act without having to go through a long political process. But of course, it's at a very small level. It's at the municipal level. So that is why I decided to compensate the approach with the political level at the Grand Conseil, so the Parliament of Canton de Vaud, where you participate in building the big decision about energy policy, biodiversity policy, etc. Knowing that for those of you who follow politics, the current situation, I'm going to make it very short for the last minute, we are basically 50-50. 50% who are sensitive to the environment, 50% who, even if they know about climate change, they don't think it's a priority on the political agenda. So it means sometimes you think an idea is great to become more sustainable, and you lose by 1 or 2 votes at the parliament, and everything, from your perspective, you have to start everything again. I'm not going to go too much into politics because maybe we have other point about that. To conclude, I would say if I can give one small level advice from my experience, all of the steps are important. Research is important to find environmental friendly solution. Private companies, I went into consulting, but you could be in Nestlé, in Yara, whatever, or policy making. And I would say it's important for you to identify, here I'm talking more to students, but identify where you feel more comfortable, what's your strengths and weaknesses. Do you like to decide but are ready to make compromise? You don't like to compromise, but then you're more part of a researcher because you rarely can decide and not make compromise. Do you like the stress of the private sector, the startup, where you need to find money for tomorrow? Do you prefer to have a financial security, but then you prefer to involve yourself in a big company or in a place where you can focus on your research? I would say find where you feel comfortable so that you can invest the maximum amount of your time and energy in fighting for the things you believe for. And of course, if it's environment, I'm happy about it. I will stop here. I'll leave the other speakers speak and happy to answer other questions after. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sebastien. Let's welcome Nicolas.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Among the skills I will present you, I choose only 4 skills, but among my skills there is not the language skills. Sorry for that. But first, to start, I don't have a lot of slides. But first, for my career, my journey, I have a diploma here at the University of Lausanne in Earth Sciences. So I made a diploma at that time because I'm rather old. At that time, in '97, we used to have diplomas and not masters. I have a master in alpine geology. That means, in Earth Sciences, you study many different things, from paleontology to chemistry, geochemistry, and geophysics, so many different things. But I study alpine and applied those skills in an alpine geology diploma. And it was very interesting because at that time, especially here in Lausanne, it was a time where there was the tradition was the field geology, but at the same time, the analytical tools were developed a lot. So at the same time, I used to use my mountain boots, pencil, and hammer on the field, but also mass spectrometer and for doing isotope geochemistry at the lab. And it was very interesting to use both at the same time. And after that, I made a PhD here, also at the University of Lausanne. It was also in isotope geochemistry. So I made my PhD here at the university. But in fact, I'm a member of the Alumni. I'm an alumni member, but I did maybe more than half of my PhD at the EPFL because I studied crystallography in order for my PhD. So I used to work at the Interdisciplinary Center for Electron Microscopy. So I did TEM, for those of you who knows that topic. That's very interesting because from the field where, as I said, you use your mountain boots, your pencil, your hammer, very classical geological style, but till the TEM, the electron microscope, where you observe atoms to the scale of the atom. That's absolutely totally amazing. Anyway, the topic was studying argon diffusion within minerals. So it was from geology to chemistry and physics. That's basically my education. But at the same time, during my study here, my PhD, I was very involved in some communication stuff. And so I decided to, I remember it was on Tuesday, I used to take the train to go to the University of Geneva to attend to the courses of a famous professor in science education. His name was André Jourdan. So at the Laboratoire de Didactique Épistémologie des Sciences. And that's where I entered to this field of science education, science didactics. And after that, 1 year later, I don't want to explain all my journey, but I was involved, hired here at the new Faculty of Geoscience Environment, where I was hired as learning engineer because of my interest also in science education. And some years later, 10 years after my PhD, I made a research master degree at the University of Lyon 1, Claude Bernard, and also with a master work at the École Normale Supérieure de Lyon, with a large and very interesting research project at that time led by the University of Sherbrooke, Canada, and of course with the École Normale Supérieure de Lyon. So that means that I have a background in physical sciences, but also in humanities, because the title of my master thesis in Lyon was the Master of History, Philosophy, and Didactics of Sciences. So after this master, I was hired as a director of the Musée de Nature Museum du Valais, Musée de la Nature du Valais. That is the Kent State Natural History Museum. That is very specific because this Natural History Museum deals also not only with biology and geology, but also deals with the topic of the relationship between society and their environment. That means also with the humanity side, because basically it is related to philosophy, to anthropology, and things like that. So for me, that was very interesting because basically I can say that I'm kind of interdisciplinary natives because I do like interdisciplinarity. So the museum is and the cultural institution is a great place for doing that. And in a sense, much better than the university. Of course, I agree that the University of Lausanne especially is very good for developing interdisciplinary projects, but at the same time, to have a career in that topic is, for the moment, impossible. It is incompatible with the university, because if you want to have a post at the university, you have to have a journey very on a single field. And that's but it's not the case in a cultural institution, and especially in museum. So that's why I'm very happy to be in that field. So, but at the same time, I must admit that I also, in a sense, also still have a foot in the academics, or maybe a two only, because I'm an associate researcher in science education at the University of Geneva, and also for the moment have a mandate as a research expert at University of Science Education in the Canton du Valais, I mean the HEP Valais. So I still have this, yes, maybe only a two in the academics. So that's basically my journey. So what drives my professional decisions? Basically, environmental issues are the most important question of our time. And I mean, not only climate change. Of course, that's very important. There is not only climate change. That's very, very important, but not only that. So basically, I use science, I mean academic knowledge and science of education for bringing new insights of the current situation to a larger audience. That's how I use my my cultural institution. That's my goal. So in order to participate, in a sense, to the development of the society. So I choose only, because of course there are, after a PhD or diploma, or I mean a master thesis, you develop a lot of specific skills. I choose 4 skills. The first one is, and it was said before, is the systemic way of addressing questions. So I choose for this, I choose a paper published in a Nature Review. It was 4 years ago, and that's the current view on the Earth system, in fact, from the Earth system science community. And that's very interesting through time, because the development of this view on what is the Earth science, the Earth system, sorry, has changed. But you see for the moment that you don't have strong limits between what is the geosphere, the biosphere, but also the anthroposphere. And that's what is very interesting here. It's not only a black box that we could be labeled human, but you can see also a very interesting concept as cultures, values, and beliefs. That's where you can see that if you tackle the environmental issues, of course, you have to also, from an academic point of view, from a knowledge point of view, also take into account the philosophical, anthropological background. That's very, very important. It's not only a matter of the left side of the graphic. So also it brings that point, the systemic point of view, and another things I would say about the system, because the systemic approach has been the main paradigm in which science has developed since the Second World War. That's very important. Nowadays, science is driven by systemic, basically all the sciences, and that's a key. That's a skill we learn when we are here, and that's something we can use elsewhere. I think in my job I can use it, and also this graph is very interesting because, of course, basically it is related to interdisciplinarity, and of course, in my journey is interdisciplinary because Earth science Earth science studies are interdisciplinary, but also. When I did my PhD, I was among only chemistry and physician and chemist. You know, I remember once I was during my PhD for 2 weeks in a course organized by the CNRS in France. And it was 2 weeks. The topic was the crystalline default. And we were among, I don't know, 50 PhD students. I was the only one from the natural science. All my colleagues were chemists and physicians. That was very interesting. So I learned a lot from that topic, and also from topics like metallogeny and this kind of engineering. That brings me a lot of very interesting stuff for my own PhD. But anyway, that's a way to move from your field to go to another one. That's something I learned during my studies. So I've been active in very different areas like this. So the third skill is something very important for me, is the idea of challenge, the way of challenging ideas. I'm convinced, and that's something also I developed during my studies here at the university, there is always other way of addressing problem. Not only, okay, this is the way we have to do it, but there is always possibility to tackle things differently. That's this idea of frontier of science. So it requires creativity, and of course, it was written open mind, and always this being willing to let certain initial ideas to change it. And the last one is also the experience of collaborate at an international level. That's something also we practice at the university. So because we are aware of the value of circulation of ideas, so there is also this kind of paradox between collaboration, but at the same time, it's not without a sort of competition. We know that in research, and that's the same, for instance, between museums. We share very many ideas, but at the same time, we would like to be the first and to have new ways of doing things. That's very similar. So the academic world is still a research for developing my project, so that's why okay, I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nicolas. Let's welcome Valentine. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. So I haven't speak English for a long time, so the accent. So I hope you could understand me. So I am a climatologist, and why is this choice? So first I studied geography and history at the University of Neuchâtel, with the intention of teaching this subject at secondary school level. These disciplines enable future citizens to acquire an understanding of the world in both its temporal and spatial dimension. So they are better placed to understand the social, environmental, and political issues at stake. But in my final year of geography, I took a climatology course with Martin Repété, well-known climatologist in French-speaking Switzerland. Thanks to her, I developed a passion for this discipline, and I start my PhD at the EPFL in this direction. I did my doctorate between 2006 and 2010. The subject was the bioclimatic potential of forests for human well-being, very important thing, and the knowledge. This knowledge participates to enhance the importance of trees and vegetation in the cities, to mitigate the heat wave effect, for example. And yes, I was very happy to study all these things, and the campus, all the life in EPFL were very interesting, and to discover the scientific community too. And but after the PhD, I had acquired a very inter- and transdisciplinary vision between social science and health system science. We speak about health system, and with that, I was very interesting to knowledge, to this knowledge, to transmit this knowledge. So I have specialist in sustainability education at the High School of Education at Lausanne, and also at Bern, Jura, and Neuchâtel. In particular, I've worked to raise awareness of the concept of planetary boundaries. Do you know, everybody, about this concept? Very important to understand the sustainability, but the strong sustainability, or the real sustainability, and yes, also with this Earth system approach. Obviously, my priorities were teaching and sensibilizing about climate challenges, which means both attenuation of our greenhouse gas emissions and adaptation to the warming climate effects. And yes, for 10 years I did all this lecture, and it was very. But in 2016, the 2016 Trump election depressed me enormously. And yeah, very enormously. I was depressed. I suppose all the climatologists and many of all scientists were depressed as me. So I decided to engage myself in politics. In the 2019 Swiss elections, the green and the violet waves carried me into the parliament as a national deputy. During that legislature, I tried to reduce the gap between science and politics, very important gap. I was horrified by the science denial practiced by the conservative parties. I had the opportunity to observe from inside how strongly the industrial lobbies influence political decisions. In that matter, the conflicts of interest cannot be underestimated. Such influences explain why our environmental and health policies underestimate the real technological risk. Yeah, reductionism is both cause and consequence of these policies, not adapted to this system thinking. So necessary to respect all 9 planet boundaries. So now I am happy to be able to use this experience to alert people to scientific denial, which is now widely disseminated via social network too. And yeah, powerful political and economic players are manipulating science, promoting falsehood, and deliberately sowing confusion among us, among people. We are now at a pivotal moment in human history. Democracy in danger, inequalities are yawning, and natural conditions for the survival of most part of humanity after 2050 are under threat. Well, you know well. So it's very critical. Faced with such a challenge, the belief that technology alone will solve us is part of the problem. And now, yes, my targets are your targets by defining the independence of research, recalling the social aims of science and its ethical limits, fighting fake news and scientific denialism, spreading the system thinking in order to respect all 9 planetary boundaries, raising public awareness of technological risk, to health and the environment, explaining the need for voluntary reduction of consumerism, sobriety. I don't find a traduction for sobriety in English. It's just not to be drunk, so it's not that sobriety. It's interesting. Helping everyone make the right choice to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, so the right choice, and become also more resilient to the effects of global warming, but with the gap between what we do, what we know we have to do, and what people will to do. So, but this will volonté, yeah, this will depend also which information people have. So the information and the disinformation is the fight. The fight against disinformation is very, very important now and for me. So my present activities, the transmission of knowledge and education, which are, I think, it's the noble missions of higher education institutions, and more essential than ever. And I am very happy to be a lecturer presently at the High School of Engineering of Canton de Vaud in Yverdon, which has recently introduced climatology in its programs. It's a good thing. And yes, I give also lectures in various institutions in French-speaking Switzerland, and I'm a consultant. Yes, I appreciate for my double approach to science and politics. So, thank you very much. Also, what the free. I have just think about one thing, because we have already said nos conseils, nos advice. Yeah. Also, yes, just one thing. What would be your best recommendation for PhD students? For me, don't think it depends only by you. So it's because your opportunities depend also on it's systemic decision, politicized orientation. So no too much culpability. And obviously, yes, think together also. Thank you very much.
Please let us thank all of the panelists together. Thank you for sharing. We're obviously running a bit late, because even myself, I took 2 minutes too much, and everybody did the same. So let's take a quick coffee break. We'll come back for questions. If you already want to take note of the questions you want to ask, or if you're too shy to ask them with the microphone later, you can scan to have a Mentimeter, and you can take note of the questions you want to ask later. See you in 10 minutes.
So I think we're going to start, and Elli is going to join whenever she can. It's a bit of a shame, because my first question was about her introduction that she made earlier. So I'm going to pass on to the next question I have here. So it's a question that will be for all of you, so everybody can answer whenever you feel comfortable. Don't hesitate also to ask your questions either in French or in English, and we will answer, or we will translate if need be. So a lot of you mentioned transversal skills that are necessary to pass from the academic world to different businesses. And I was wondering, which for you is the most important? So whenever you feel comfortable.
For me, the communication abilities, the capacity to explain complexity for everyone, I think it's one of the most important.
Yeah, you said that it would be useful, let's say, in many different kind of situations.
Yes, every sector, every social, economical, and yes, political. Obviously, I live that. And
talking about political, yes, Sebastien can go on.
Maybe quickly, if I use my experience, which is to make it simple, consulting and politics. Like one of the skill that I feel is helps a lot is trying. I don't know how you would say that in psychology, but trying to put yourself in the shoes of the other person, trying to understand. It's not about pushing your idea, but typically as a consultant, it's about trying to understand the need of your clients. And in fact, in politics, it's a bit trying to understand the need either of your opponent or your elector. And that is a social skill, especially for consulting, that is key to have success, because at the end, my experience is that the main reason clients want to work with us is not because of our technical skill first, is because they feel that they are heard. And then you need behind to have the technical skill to answer.
Do you have something to add, Rémi, Nicolas?
It will be a little bit redundant because I mainly agree with what has been said, but jumping on that, I think the capacity to modulate your discourse in order to make a message that is understandable for the people that are in front of you. So in my place, I do not speak the same way when I am speaking to a deputy, or when I am speaking to a member of the government, or when I am speaking to the head of the economic service at the Canton de Vaud, and I have to modulate my message in order to bring people with me, and that's skills that I think that we learn also in academics.
I agree too. This ability to make the difference between what is at stake with the situation and how to communicate, to make the difference, and not to. And also, I would like to add maybe the ability to sum up a situation, to understand, to have a synthetic view of what is at stake. That's very important. That's something we learn. Because when you write a paper, at the beginning, you made the state of the art. So you must have this ability to understand what basically is at stake, and not to be lost in details and things like that. That's something I think we can learn from higher education and research.
So we're talking here a lot of technical skills, but mainly soft skills. That's what you mentioned, communication and ways to translate elements to the broad public. Do we have questions in the room? Yes.
So talking about soft skills, how do you assess communication skills in a candidate or someone or a coworker that wants to work with you? What if you're not interested in metrics such as research papers or other things? How do you do it? How would you do it? Would you ask them to, like? I'm just wondering, like, how do you prove that as a candidate that you can communicate well and with diverse groups?
Quickly, and again from an engineering consulting firm perspective. To make it simple, if you graduate from EPFL, for example, we don't doubt your technical skills. So maybe we just ask one question to make sure that you didn't fool us and send a fake CV. But then, indeed, most of the interview, for example, if we interview you to hire you, will be on the soft skill. Not really to know whether you're good or not, is more to know where you fit. And typically in delivering consulting services, someone needs to have a skill of calculating carbon footprint and may not be in contact with the client. That person, the soft skill would be the capacity to quickly make an assumption when you don't have data, because you need to move forward. And the person who is going to be in contact with the client in project management is his capacity to understand the problem of the client. and if you're a team leader, is a capacity to manage conflict among your workers. So depending on what you applied for, we're gonna check if the soft skills you have will fit with that position, because in my experience, most of the people we hired and that the failed hiring were not because of the hard skill, were because the people were not in the good place in the company.
Elli, come with us. Join the panel.
Excuse me. I can give an example, because last year we recruited an LCA and carbon footprint specialist in our team. And yeah, what we look after was not the technical skills, as you said, because we had several very good people on that side. But what we did was to test soft skills with different things. The first thing is the interview, of course. So we had questions that were oriented to test these soft skills. We also did an assessment. So the persons, they had a simple problem which was based, as I remember, on explaining why cause impact climate change to some deputy, for instance. And we compared the different prestations of these people. And there was huge differences in the way the people explained that to someone that was really not a specialist of the question. So this capacity of vulgarization was really, really important. And we also look at what the person does outside of his main job. So all the things that are your hobbies, or maybe some political engagement, or other things that can show that you have this kind of soft skills. If I have the conviction that if failing a recruitment is failing to detect a person that lack of this kind of soft skills, we cannot fail on the technical side, because the paper and the diploma, they are strong enough.
Yes, this capacity is always a technical skills, because in pedagogy, in school education, we learn that. We learn to understand the representations of people, and to comment on dit, construire et déconstruire,
to
build and unbuild the complex problematic, and all that could be very useful in politics and society, in economics. Yes.
Thank you. Yes, Nicolas.
In science of education, it's named misconceptions. What is not related to that's the misconception in the English literature.
Thank you. Do we have other questions, reactions to what has just been said?
Thank you very much for everything you've said so far. Of course, I very much agree. But I would like to go just a little bit beyond this hiring and the skills, if you allow me, because in the end we all want to move climate action forward. And we can study, develop new knowledge at academia, etc. We can try to implement that with more or less difficulty on the political side. And we have all sorts of organizations, companies, civil groups, etc., somewhere in between. And moving from one to the other is always difficult, either from job-wise or just intellectually moving from one to the other. But somehow, wouldn't a better way forward be if we could all have a certain part of our activity in each one of those all the time? So we are all somehow involved in deeply understanding and producing or combining knowledge, and we are all involved in some kind of political governance. That doesn't need to be a full-time job. And we are all somehow involved in some citizen initiatives. Could we imagine a type of societal organizations where we could have multiple activities as opposed to one job? And wouldn't that somehow solve the problem? Because at least we would understand each other.
That's
I
a
don't know
usual.
if there's an answer to this, but at least there's a way to build on it or think about it.
We can try at least. It's a huge but important question. So if somebody wants to jump in.
Yes, in Bern, in the national politics and polities, yes, the problem is this science denial. I speak about that before, and this denial has 2, 3 causes, and one is the psychological process. So it's impossible just explain and just come with our knowledge if these people is in this psychological frame. Yes, so we need also to learn how human mental, yes, all these psychological causes are very, very important to so.
Don't ever hesitate if you prefer using French or whatever. It's really bilingual here for this period of question. If you ever feel more comfortable.
Ce que je veux dire, c'est que j'ai souvent pu observer que si on arrive avec justement la position du scientifique en disant, au départ en tant que scientifique, j'étais un peu naïve en arrivant au Parlement. Je pensais que c'est parce que certains ne comprenaient pas bien. Et alors, il y a une partie effectivement de ces politiciens qui ont même aucune idée de ces enjeux, mais ils sont pas non plus du tout dans une position où ils ont envie d'apprendre. Ils préfèrent rester dans cette ignorance parce qu'elle est plus confortable pour eux. Et après, il y a ceux qui savent très bien, mais qui sont complètement cyniques et dans une disposition psychologique extrêmement égocentrique. Donc ça, c'est vraiment des profils psychologiques et il faut faire avec.
This being said, what else can we add to the question, to Sasha's questions? Anybody wants to react also?
In short, so I concur about the political side. Unfortunately, it's the same at the Parliament in Canton de Vaud. Maybe quickly, that was maybe I tried to say it. I feel that people, when they look at the career they want to do, if they want to fight for climate change, biodiversity, whatever, it's important to identify where you feel you will be comfortable and where you can express your strengths. And it could be like a researcher who do a part-time into policy or politics. It could be a consultant who do part-time in an NGO. You could be 50% in a big company and 50% still giving classes at EPFL. And here that's where you could indeed maybe even have a snowball effect of transferring your knowledge and your fight for sustainability from one sector to another sector. So that would be what I would see as a solution.
Yes, definitely there is an individual personal dimension, but basically I do think that the different institutions can have a common goals, but can tackle the problem. The way they talk about this can be very different and complementary. That's very important. And for instance, we made a large exhibition in 2016 on the Anthropocene. It was the first in the world from a natural history. Of course, it was very great. We got a great impact. We had classroom coming from Geneva to Sion. That was amazing. You know, our museum is very small. But at the same time, I knew that it was just a drop of water, you know, and we have to go on. And what, for instance, in my museum, I decided to, of course, we talk about the planetary boundaries and things like that, but that's not the main point. The main point is the topic of symbolic relation to our environment. I mean, so that's a way to tackle the stuff. And sometimes I was said, okay, you're not enough political. You have to fight more. But I do agree with that, but I do a small part of the job, and other people do it more politically, and I like it. But it's not, I cannot do everything from my point of view. So I choose to tackle the problem from one angle, and I hope on that other institution or people or politics and things like can tackle the problem differently. That's the, for instance, you know, you have the UN goals. Okay, that's very nice from a political point of view. But I think sometimes when I see a museum using those goals, I think it's low level. We have in our institution to do much more than that. It's very good. I do agree with the UN goals. That's good for politics. But that's not what we have to do in museum. We have to be more innovative and to tackle the problem differently. To be more, we need redundancy for people to tackle the problem differently and to have not only the single speech on the topic, but tackle the problem differently from different angles.
Is it a good selling pitch to bring your value with you everywhere you go and say in interviews, CVs, everywhere, I want to have an impact. I want to have an impactful career. I want to act on sustainability. Is it a good selling pitch or not really? Because sometimes it can play against you. What would you say?
Yeah, for candidates, I would say that it's a good selling pitch. It is important to show that you are motivated towards this. If you apply, of course, in a job that is related to that field. But definitely motivation and showing that, yes, I want to do something good is we perceive it as someone who is motivated and will do a good job in that sense. Even in international organizations just like yours? Yes, definitely it depends on the position you are looking for. But I was hired as global expert hydrogen for the decarbonization of the large-scale industry because Yara, like a lot of other companies and like a lot of countries, they announced that we want to be fully carbon neutral by 2050. So the first thing I said was that, you know, this vision, I fully comply with it. I'm enthusiastic. Now, whether this will be done or not, it's not only about my work and the goodwill. I think that most of us understand that there are a lot of challenges too. So show as much passion as for every activity you mentioned at the beginning for sea and ocean, right? Yes, to show that you want to work in that sense. Yeah. Thank you. Are there questions maybe in the audience? Yes.
I'm sorry for my English. I will try to do my best. My questions is because I'm 25. I'm a young person, and I have a lot of, I don't know if that's dreams or just things I want to do for my future. But what would you do? What would you say to a person who, I don't know how to say that, but sometimes I think my credibility is not the best at the moment because I'm a young person and I work in an institution where the climate is not the priority at the moment, and so I don't know how when you are a young person can you have an impact and a credibility in front of person who are like je vais peut-être essayer en français, ce sera plus facile. Mais comment juste avoir un peu de crédit face à des gens qui sont peut-être pas encore ouverts au changement et avoir cette posture même quand on a peut-être pas encore l'expérience et voilà la prestance de quelqu'un qui a un peu de la bouteille, quoi.
I think Valentine wants to jump in.
Yes, je réponds volontiers du coup aussi directement en français. Beaucoup de ces plus vieilles personnes qui diront à des plus jeunes, ma foi, le climat, c'est pas la priorité. Il faut, et c'est une réalité, une acceptation sociale, etc., etc. Souvent, eux-mêmes n'ont pas vraiment un bagage de connaissances scientifiques. Ils ont beaucoup d'expérience dans des domaines très précis, mais ils ont rarement les connaissances scientifiques et encore plus rarement une approche systémique et une compréhension de ce qu'est le système Terre, par exemple, et de ce que signifie avoir dépassé 6 des 9 limites planétaires. Et ils n'ont pas non plus une approche dans le temps. Ils ont souvent cette incapacité qui est également idéologique à se projeter à moyen et long terme. Souvent, ils restent au court-termisme productiviste, économique. Donc, en fait, tout ceci est idéologique et souvent, ceux qui sont dans une position de pouvoir, en fait, cachent leur ignorance. Donc, prenez-en conscience, prenez confiance. Les jeunes, en particulier étudiants d'aujourd'hui, comprennent et connaissent bien mieux tous ces enjeux, ont assimilé le system thinking dont on parlait, ce qui n'est pas le cas de ces vieux messieurs qui restent dans le réductionnisme. Et je dis vieux messieurs parce qu'ils sont extrêmement majoritaires, mais il y a aussi quelques femmes dans le tas qui ne sont pas meilleures.
Other reactions?
On a short note, just about the age, the consulting world often has a lot of very young people coming out of studies, so it's totally normal to be young in that field. And if the person in front of you is older, I would say what I observe is that as long as you are within your sphere of expertise, whether you're 23 or whether you're 45 will not change your credibility a lot.
Yeah, I would add, don't worry about your age. I think basically it's not a matter of age because it's a matter of ideology. And I'm sure that also there are a lot of people of your age that is conservative with not this kind of view, because you can see from a political point of view that it's not so, here we are at the university, it's very, but when you go outside, it's not the same. So it's not a matter of age. You know, basically, I do work on the Anthropocene because for me it's not maybe the best concept to work on in terms of interdisciplinarity. And basically what we can learn from the Anthropocene is that we need a metamorphosis of the way of thinking. The software that has made work the world since modernity or modern times is now it's over. We have to change it definitely. I don't judge what happened before, but now we must change. So don't care. Don't worry about your age. Go on.
Thank you. And I think we can make a round of applause for that. Bravo. Nicolas, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I have a question. A lot of people that are doing research for many years will become very specialized in their field. It's what's needed to be successful in research. But then we look at your career path where you've jumped from left to right, center, entrepreneur. You worked in small companies, in big companies, politicians. How would you explain that to someone that feel they're too specialized to be successful in a career later?
I think you should not focus on a specialization. If you are specialized just because you have done a PhD and even a postdoc, which means that you worked for 5, 6, 7 years in one field, most people, most recruiters will look at, as we said, also your soft skills, and it is rather a guarantee that you can work independently, so they don't need to tell you every day what you are doing. And you can solve problems. So this is the essence. I mean, most of the people that have done a PhD and did not continue in the academia, they did not continue working in their field of PhD. I did not continue working on I did not mention it We had my PhD was I started with a supercritical, with a rapid expansion of supercritical solutions, ended up with a non-electrochemical modification of catalytic activities at high temperatures. You end up, a lot of things I've learned, I worked with very high pressures and it has been useful later on, but no one really cared. When I started in Casale, no one cared about the expansion of supercritical solutions. But my PhD was a guarantee that I can work, I can solve problems in a fast way, in an efficient way. That's what, about the age, I agree with all the others that it is not important. We expect that young people are young, so yeah. It's not possible. It's not possible to have 20 years of experience if we are 25.
Just something. When you are at the university or the EPFL, you have the opportunity to attend to many very interesting lectures on different topics, and when you apply to a job, you can prove that you are interesting, you have knowledge and interest in other topics. So, and at the same time, you can, of course, stay on your business, on your matter, but you can attend to lecture. For instance, for many years at the EPFL, of course, they have the Collège des Humanités, but also here at the university, you can attend and because of the alumni, but also with les cours publics, je sais pas comment ça s'appelle. You have very different opportunities to open your, not only your mind, but to learn a lot of, in fact. So take this opportunity when you are here.
Is one of you, have you done some professional training once you got out of the academic world and wanted to get in other directions, wanted to change a bit your career path? Did you attend some specific training, or?
Well, the answer is yes. Alors, personally, it's not because I wanted to change career, but indeed, like most of you, at least in engineering, I did 5 years for my PhD in modeling air particles, so it's very specific. But after that, every single training we had in the company or that I took on a personal way was indeed, we say it again, but about the soft skills, negotiation, media, how to be in front of a media, etc. Personality types, often those one-day training every 6 months. And personally, now with 20 years of background, I would say those trainings were extremely useful because once you take those trainings within your professional life, you can apply them directly the next day. So that would be basically an advice to do, is that every time you have an opportunity to take a training, like you said, I would say take it.
Perfect, thank you. Other questions? Yes.
Yeah, I have a question regarding network. I know it's not always easy and, to go and meet other people and expand your network. Can you maybe explain, what, your experience when you first, tried to find your first job or, so in finding a job, but also after in your current professional life, how do you go about it? And any advice you have for people who haven't started that process?
I'm not a good example of social media and networking. I have a very large network because I've worked in a lot of fields and with a lot of people, with EU projects, still working with people, startups of the EPFL. So I have a large network and it ended up being quite important in LinkedIn. What I see is that the young generation, a lot of people are already starting while they are still students to make a LinkedIn profile. And some end up their studies having already 300, 400, what we call them, contacts. They are active in that field. So it has certainly an impact for a large number of recruiters, particularly in companies. So I think it is positive. I can't speak about Facebook or Instagram and things like that because I don't have an account. It was also personal choice. But I think that networking, I found, it is done sometimes by chance. But of course, if you know more people, we are discussing about something, you say, no, I've heard that someone is looking for someone in that field. So, yeah, like you can always have information about new job opportunities. And I would say that what is important for the new generation is also to be proactive and sometimes try to contact directly startup companies, trying to see if they can join, or find the specific people, if possible, in a company doing a specific work. If you want to sell yourself more in a more focused way, all these things can help.
I agree with that. I think LinkedIn obviously is very important, and yes, I receive a lot of proposition, spontaneous proposition. Yes, also with the notoriety with the position in the parliament is very helpful for me. But when I finished my PhD, for example, I haven't this visibility. So it's useful, but you need visibility. And I think for the younger generation, all Instagram, and yes, I think if you have this soft skill with communication, now a lot of things can be do with video, and yes, if you have this competence, probably it, if you want to be independent, if you want to be a consultant, yes, I think it's very useful. But
I wanted to add one thing. One thing I've noticed sometimes with people coming out of university when we go to conferences or whether it's clients, is that sometimes people are worried to give a bad image. And I would say, see, from my perspective, this is often a wrong worry. And again, I use my experience in consulting, where that's a feeling I have, is that companies, the first reason they want to work with you is not because of your skill, it's because they like you. And of course, then you need to have the skill that comes with. So as a joke, I would say one of my networking skill is as the beer, because I like to drink. And if you go to a conference, something, I mean, don't leave right after, like stay, drink a beer. Connect with people beyond simply a CV. So that's something I would say on a personal level. And I would say don't hesitate. Don't worry of giving a bad impression when it's about connecting socially. I would say it's always good.
Thank you. Maybe I can add something about the social media. As I said, to a larger extent, I think that now people focus on Instagram, as far as I know. But I have an example of when I worked in Belenos. Someone had sent a CV to work at Belenos, and the first thing my colleague, who would also give his opinion about the new recruit, the first thing they did was to enter in the Facebook account and to see the pictures and what was on Facebook. So there was, and I remember he instantly said, no, what, because the picture was, people put their photograph. Facebook was supposed to be a little bit personal, but be aware of what is published, yes, and know that people may use it.
Thank you. We have one quick question online and one maybe quick answer right after that for the sake of time.
So here's a question online. What has been the effect of the release of the IPCC report in 2021 and 22 within your different administration, companies, and political organizations?
Good question.
Yes, in Bern, the parliament, it had not have a very strong effect, sadly, why the process, the long process of elaboration of the law, the law for reduction our CO2 emission was already going. So it was not a very big change. And we proved the Green Party and the both Green ecological parties and the left parties try to give this information in the parliament, but yes, we have a lot of yes. The white politicians said it's not the place, parliament, to do science. So it was this white.
Interesting point of view, that's for sure. You wanted to add something, Rémi?
Yeah, I would say that it has mainly a contextual effect because we know that things for a while now, and at least in the Canton de Vaud, the necessity to act at the level of the government, at least, it's not put into question. What it's put into question is the solutions and the way that we need to construct, to reduce our emission or to adapt to climate change. And that's the challenge, and that's what we are focusing on right now. That's the difficulty. And the other thing is that to have an influence or a more direct influence, what we try to do is to produce local-based knowledge. So to produce knowledge that are focused on the Canton de Vaud. And that's why we produced a carbon footprint. That's why we produced an audit of the Plan Climat. Spoiler alert, we are not on a good track either at our scale, but at least we can show that at the level of where we have an influence, and that's important for us.
Thank you. One quick thing to add.
There was one, do you know the IPBES on biodiversity published, I think, 2 or 3 years ago? That makes a change. That made a change, because since that time we have seen more and more political discourse in talking climate change and biodiversity, and before it was not the case. It was obvious in the academic realm or in museum and things like that, because we do know that. But it has changed something, the IPBES, I think.
Yes, exactly. Thank you very much for your comments. The discussion was very interesting. For those of you who still have questions or online questions, please don't hesitate to write to us, and we will liaise with our speakers. For the others who are here in person, it will be the time for the apéro, so you will have the occasion to speak with our panelists directly. Please, a round of applause for them. And maybe a quick last thing. I will show here on my slide another QR code for your comments about the event. Your comments are very important to us, so please share what you liked or disliked about the event. It will be very useful for us. Have a good apéro. Come to see us at the apéro if you have other questions. It was a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you.